If you don't speak Russian impeccably, don't come here. If you do speak Russian impeccably, but you don't have a very, 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 very high tolerance for dysfunctionality, then don't come here. If you speak impeccable Russian and have a very, 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 very high tolerance for dysfunctionality, I would still not recommend coming here. Welcome to Almaty, Kazakhstan. Let me tell you a story. Hello everyone and welcome from Almaty, Kazakhstan, much closer to the People's Republic of China than of Europe. So, in order to explain, or in order for the story to make sense, I'll have to start with the communist era joke. Variations of this joke have been around from Berlin to Shenzhen throughout the Cold War. It was said that the party, now of course the version that I heard for the first time was with the Romanian Communist Party, but you know, it was the German Party of Labour, the Albanian Party of Labour, the party ordered that maybe there should be a state-owned and state-operated brothel. So they assign a building and assign a president and a collective, a committee, to work on developing and opening up for the public a brothel. A few months pass and eventually they report back to the Central Committee that they have developed the operations of a brothel and they're ready to open up on whatever, next Monday or so they do. And the first customer shows up and says, well, look, I come here to enjoy the services of this newly opened establishment. And the clerk says, okay, are you into fat women or thin women? Well, I prefer thin women. All right, the second door on the left, and then follow the instructions. So the client goes in, the second door on the left, and it says blonde thin. The first door says blonde thin women, brunette thin women, and whatever, gray haired thin women. And goes through the blonde door. Then two other doors, blonde thin women over the age of 40 and blonde thin women under the age of 40. Goes for the under the age of 40. Then blonde thin women under the age of 30 or over the age of 30. Goes for the under the age of 30. Then blonde thin women under the age of 30 with an intellectual background or without an intellectual background. He goes through the door of an intellectual background. And then, I don't know, the next room, there's two other doors, blonde thin women with an intellectual background under the age of 30, with a master's degree or without a master's degree. And he goes through the door without a master's degree, and that door takes him back into the street. Angered with the situation, the customer goes around the building once again and goes back to the clerk and tells the story of what happened to him. And come on, I mean, this is crazy. I came here for the whores. Where are the whores? The prostitutes. And the clerk says, well, we don't have whores, but don't you love it how we organized the place? Now this is a story, of course, is not necessarily about prostitutes. It's a story about dysfunctional countries. Now back to Kazakhstan. In theory, and in practice too, because I went and checked, there are at least 8 or 9 trains a day to get from here to Karaganda, where the Gulag is. The problem is that buying a ticket turns out to be nearly impossible. So here I am in the middle of the night after almost a day trying to get a ticket to one of those trains, either for the next day or 2 days from now or even 3 days from now. I'm even willing to alter the program quite significantly just so I can get to Karaganda. And it turns out that, again, it's nearly impossible. In theory, there are 3 online services, and of course the very classical way, you just go to the railway station and purchase the ticket. Now, you can go to the railway station, and the railway station functions exactly as the story, the joke from with the brothel that I just told you. You know, there are big railway stations, they look nice, they even have a security check on there, very similar with what you see in Israel, in fact. And then, of course, there are open ticketing offices, and none of them sell tickets. So we don't have tickets, but don't you love it how we organize the railway station? So okay, fine, you're gonna have to go through an online service. Now, 3 online services, all 3 of them have their own timetable. That is to say, a train that exists on this time on this online service doesn't exist on the other one, and sometimes one online service says that in a certain day there are no tickets available, when in fact there are. Now there's the third problem. None of the 3 online services accept any sort of electronic payment that is not from this region. So you either need to have a Chinese card, or a local card, or a Kyrgyz card. Not even all Russian cards work, and definitely not European ones, and definitely not American ones. So yeah, I still don't have a ticket for the next destination, and 7 or 8 hours from now I'm scheduled for the first objective here in Almaty, so it's gonna be very complicated. So yeah, that's dysfunctional Kazakhstan for you. Now, of course, there are some positive aspects too. As opposed to my last visit here, which was many years ago, finally the public transport within the city is actually very functional and affordable and reliable. But as a counter to that, the intercity railway service has become a bit more dysfunctional than it was. I mean, you know, in the past you would just, like in any other place in the world, you just go to the railway station, purchase a ticket, and then when the train arrives, you hop in and you get off at the destination, and that's it, and you don't think twice about it. Well, good luck with that in this country. So yeah, if you don't have a high tolerance for dysfunctionality, don't come here. To make things worse, I mean, I've seen similar kinds of dysfunctionalities in other places, but to make things worse, here the people aren't particularly helpful either, in the sense that, you know, for instance, in Armenia has a very dysfunctional transportation system inside the country. Now, getting off the country is easy from Armenia, but inside the country is quite dysfunctional. But the people are helpful, so you know, if you get into trouble and you can't figure it out, and their system is much easier to use than the one here in Kazakhstan. But you know, if you get into trouble, they will try to help you get out of that trouble. Here, however, it's just pure passivism. It's not passive aggressive, it's just pure passive. Oh well, it doesn't run. Oh well, it's not available. Okay, and then what? Well, I guess you don't go. No, that's not an acceptable outcome. So yeah, now I guess if I can't figure out a way to get on that train, one of the younger kids essentially suggested to do what many of the locals do, which is basically get in the train without a ticket and just pay a bribe to the train conductor, and it is what it is. I could do that, but the problem is that the distance is very big. And I don't like taking these kinds of chances of being taken off the train for not having a ticket in a place so remote, because you know the risk is pretty high, and of course there's also the problem with the weather. So you know, here's almost midnight local time, which would be 7 p.m. Zulu, and GMT +5 is the time zone here. And it's still 36, 37 degrees Celsius, so, which by local standards is good enough, and also is good enough for me to be able to just sit here and record this video. During daytime I wouldn't be in such a mood to stay out for so long just to record a video. However, I did spend a lot of time outside, as you can see, because you know, you all know my ugly face, you don't have to see my face too much. I did spend some time outside, so here's some footage from around Almaty, just from the day of the arrival. Oh yeah, arriving into this country has also become a bit more dysfunctional. The international airport in Almaty is not the most dysfunctional I've been into, but very close. It could get into top 10 most dysfunctional airports I've stepped foot into. Now, admittedly, the world has changed. After the so-called pandemic, many of the Western airports have become highly dysfunctional, and by comparison to what's going on in many airports in Western Europe these days, this one is not really that dysfunctional. But compared to what I'm accustomed and compared to the region's standards, this one is still pretty dysfunctional. So yeah, there's too many things that have gotten worse in Kazakhstan over the last decade or so, but admittedly others have gotten better. Remember that episode from the propaganda basement where I read to you a short fragment of a book written in Romanian, but in the 1860s, in the transitional alphabet? Well, that's Kazakhstan today. There's a transitional alphabet, which is half Cyrillic, half Latin, or Latin-based, which makes it impossible to read addresses or read names of buildings, so at least you can inform the cab driver where to take you. So it is, and also some of the younger drivers don't speak Russian, although most of them do. But some of them don't, and they expect the name in Kazakh, and that wouldn't be a problem if it were written either in Cyrillic or in Latin. But in the transitional alphabet, there's several characters within it that I just don't recognize, and I have no idea how to pronounce them. So yeah, 1860s, but in 2022. Great. Oh, one more thing. Almost no tourists. I mean, in 2 days here, and again, Almaty is Kazakhstan, right? I mean, it's the biggest city, it's the most important city. If there are any foreign tourists, they would, or any kind of foreigners really, they should be here, and particularly in the downtown of this city. They're not. They're just not. I got into not a spat, but a string of jokes really, because it was all lighthearted. With a few locals just about an hour before I started recording this video. I stopped by a store to buy some cigarettes and buy some water. You really need to buy a lot of water here. And I was talking with my partner in Romanian, and they started discussing with each other in Russian in a lower voice, saying, "Oh, look, tourists, I'll be damned. Haven't seen those in quite a while, and they're usually not that many." And I was like, yeah, and you won't see many of them for much longer, because this place is dysfunctional. And that's another aspect. I mean, even the people who are not willing to stay passive about the situation, even they are surprised just how dysfunctional the place is for a visitor, because they haven't encountered the problem. If you have a local bank account or are willing to go weeks before necessary and buy the train ticket, I guess it works. But for someone like me, it just doesn't work. Period. There's just no way around it. Well, I'm exaggerating a bit with no way around it. I think I have 2 or 3 ways around the problem, but as of the moment of this recording, it just doesn't work. So yeah, with that said, I'm still not considering changing the objectives. I think I won't. I think I'll be able to hit them all, but I might have to again change the order one more time due to this to this issue. So I'll probably have to add 1 or 2 days here in Almaty just so I can get the ticket and get the hell out of here, and remove the 2 days at the end of the tour, which I was supposed to also spend here. I'll probably arrive here just in the day of the flight to get back to Europe. But yeah, it's off to a terrible start. The Gulag tour is off to a terrible start. The Gulag is no longer shut down due to COOF, but it's still inaccessible due to terrible ticketing services. So yeah, welcome to Kazakhstan, I guess. Oh yeah, see you. Keep in touch, I guess. I was unable to contact anyone because the roaming rates are absolutely haram. I wasn't willing to purchase a local SIM card in this country because you know, only for a few phone calls that's okay. But apparently I'm gonna have to also change that because yeah, so many things are just dysfunctional entirely. If I guess if you don't, if you're not willing to just go all in with all of these marginal, globally marginal, but regionally relevant so-called services. And again, presumably they would work with the local number, which is me committing the sin of assuming shit. It probably doesn't work anyway, but you know, it's my duty to try. So yeah, with that said, thanks for watching, gib shekelim, and see you soon. Cheers.